I was already into that flow of doing long meditations, and I was enjoying it so much. I was just not ready to give that up for anything. In the chakra system, we have, broadly speaking, 7 of them. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And this chakra here is more like divine emotions, and this is knowledge, spiritual knowledge and mundane knowledge. Regulate the hormones and regulate the chakras, balance the chakras in a way. And then if your hormones are regulated, your emotions are going to be a lot calmer.
A safe place somewhere in the woods, we can start the fire. And we all sit around the fire. We feel a little warmer now. And we all sit around the fire.
Welcome to the Cosmic Conversations podcast. Today, we have a special episode. I have my friend Dada Diiptimananda here with me. We're at a very beautiful retreat center hosted by my friend Diiptimananda Achira. And today we're going to ask Dada some questions. So Dada, how did you become a monk? Maybe you've been a monk for 21 years, I believe?
Yeah.
So maybe you want to tell a little bit of the story behind
How
that?
I became a monk?
Yeah.
So it started with learning meditation, obviously. So when I was 17, I had an episode of nightmares, which kind of started the journey. Many people actually start a spiritual journey that something difficult happens to them. And so my journey started with dreams that I would wake up exhausted in the morning and repeating every day. So I thought, okay, I have to do something. And so the thought to learn meditation came, and I learned Papa Nam Kevalam, which is the basic meditation. And then from there, day after my 18th birthday, I learned my first lesson, and then gradually learned all the lessons. And as I learned more, I started to practice more. And by the time I was 20, I had a big decision in life whether to go to university or just focus on my music studies. And so I decided to focus on my music so I could have more time to meditate. And so then I started to meditate a lot more than I had before. And gradually I worked myself up to waking up like 4 or 5 a.m. and getting around 5 to 8 hours of meditation, yoga, and reading spiritual books. And so eventually it came to a point where I started asking myself, what do I want to do in life? What would benefit humanity the most? And what would be the most unique that I could contribute? And then, this monk path started coming up. And eventually I made the transition and decided to be a monk. And then it was just a matter of taking training, and training took a long time, 8 years, and then I finished in 2005.
Yeah, I feel like most people wouldn't even imagine the thought of becoming a monk. That's so far away from most people, the idea of becoming a monk. So maybe you can bridge the gap a little bit. Why did you want to become a monk? Like,
why specifically? Okay, well,
what is the benefit of becoming a monk?
Oh, what's the benefit? Okay. Well, the biggest benefit is that you're able to teach the meditation. And of course, in our system, we also have family teachers. We call them family acharyas. But to become a family acharya is not easy, because you basically have to do the meditation, be a perfect citizen, have family, have kids, and then after being a family person for like 20, 30 years, then applying to be an acharya, and then maybe being approved, and then maybe becoming a family acharya, and then maybe having a time to teach, or maybe being already too old to teach.
So it's kind of having that dedication to be able to put all of your effort.
Yeah, so I felt that I really wanted to start teaching right away, or as soon as possible. And I felt there was a great need. I felt the world was really in a transition. I felt both economically, everything was shifting, and also culturally, I felt the culture was kind of stagnating and really needed a boost. So I felt that the whole world was kind of in a transition, and that also I had realized that most of the meditation that I had not studied so much other systems, but I could understand our system was very good, and it was a genuine system, and we really didn't have that many teachers. But there were some personal reasons also that kind of made me make that decision in the end. But so it was partly like idealistic, but it was also some personal triggers on myself. And what is the benefit? Sorry, I didn't answer that question. The biggest benefit is that most of us, we have a little bit more freedom in the day to do longer meditations. So generally speaking, most people have a regular job, like an 8-hour work day, and then after the work they need to purchase groceries and take care of the family and all that, and there's really not that much time left in the day. And so at the most you could maybe put in like 1 or 2 hours of meditation per day. But the monks, we are more free. We can meditate 5 to 8 hours if we want. And so I was already into that flow of doing long meditations, and I was enjoying it so much that I felt like I was just not ready to give that up for anything. I really wanted to be able to continue going deeper and deeper in my meditation and share that with others.
Yeah, I think in the West we have this notion about what it means to become a monk, and like Christian monasticism, lots of people must think that monks must be tied down and forced into monasticism to become a monk, because for most people it would just be so the opposite of what they would find enjoyable. You know, most people want to go and party and have sex and do drugs, and so that's the whole other opposite of that. But what you're saying is that actually this life can be more enjoyable even than some hedonistic life, that this is what you actually want and choose to do.
Yeah, I mean, I was never into drugs. I decided when I was maybe around 10 years old that I would not have any addictions in my life. And so I was seeing people had addictions around me, but I made a very strong decision very early on not to have any addictions. And so I was very careful to choose friends, to avoid any friends that could bring me into addictions or addiction path. And I was very much into music, and so the meditation was like an augment to that, in the sense that I was already enjoying the bliss and happiness of the music, but the meditation just gave another dimension to that enjoyment. Means I was already enjoying more kind of psychic enjoyments, reading books, listening to music, playing music. That was kind of my main enjoyments, and of course being in nature. But then the meditation added another dimension to that, the psycho-spiritual dimension.
So maybe you can talk a little bit about Sri Sri Anandamurti. He obviously devised so much philosophy, but he talked a lot about psycho-spirituality and our chakras, and there's a more mundane aspects to reality and more supra-mundane, perhaps that's the term that he used. So how do we go from the mundane to the supra-mundane? And maybe you can describe a little bit of the difference between the material propensities that we might find in our chakras and the spiritual propensity.
So in the chakra system, we have something called vritti, or propensity. So the chakra is the energy centers, and we have, broadly speaking, 7 of them. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So broadly speaking, I say, because there are some sub chakras as well. And then within each chakra, we have, you can see it as a flower. So every chakra is a flower, and the flower has different number of petals. So like the first one has 4 petals, and then 6, 8, 12, 16, and 2. So overall 50 vrittis, or 15 petals. Now the first chakra is like the base of everything. So it is basic longings, longing for physicality, longing, psychophysical longing, psychospiritual longing, and spiritual longing. So the first chakra, in that sense, is neutral. It's just the base of everything. You wouldn't be able to live without it, without those longings. However, the second and third chakra, they represent problematic emotions, more animal-like emotions that we have inherited from our animal background, as we have evolved from animals. So you have their emotions like hatred, fear, shyness, even sadistic tendency, desire for enjoyment to the extent of
like addictions.
Yeah,
maybe.
addictions. Yeah, also fear, varying types of fear. The second chakra has paralyzing fear. The third chakra has motivating fear. Whereas the fourth chakra has like a nagging fear. And so the chakras, the second and third chakras, are very kind of materialistic in a way, or animalistic. Whereas the fourth chakra is more human emotions, like love, jealousy also. And not jealousy, but like...
envy?
Yeah, envy, yeah. And this chakra here is more like divine emotions, and this is knowledge, spiritual knowledge, and mundane knowledge. So we kind of need everything. It's all an expression. We need to eat, we need to, live our lives. And the way out of this is to first to regulate the hormones and regulate the chakras, balance the chakras in a way by eating proper diet and doing regular yoga asanas and fasting. So these physical means, they help to control the hormones. And then if your hormones are regulated, your emotions are going to be a lot calmer. And then on the mental level, you need to meditate, because the mind has a tendency to go external. All the motor and sensory organs, they propel the mind outwards. And so most people, as soon as they wake up, they are propelled outwards, and the whole life is just going from inside to outwards. Whereas in the meditation, you're going from external to internal. And so we need both. We need external, we need internal, but we need to balance it. So we need to work, we need to render service, but we also need to meditate and find our inner self. And so in our practice, we combine the both, and to add to that, we also have a practice called Madhuvidya. And so Madhuvidya, or honey knowledge, is where you're actually doing actions, but you are taking an ideation or thinking of the Supreme while acting. And so that enables you to do all your mundane work and make your mundane work elevated into spiritual actions. So you can both meditate, you can also have spiritual ideation throughout the day between the meditations. And so in that way, you can generally, we have practices that enable you to live a spiritual life regardless whether you have family or are a monk. You don't need to be a monk to have spiritual life. You can also have a very mundane life, have a mundane job, be handling a lot of money or whatever, but be very spiritually alert. So it's all in the brain. It's all in, not in the brain, in the mind. It's all in the mind. How spiritual or how mundane is your life?
Beautifully put. I think there was some Western monastic or some person who said that it's very likely also a common sentiment in Eastern philosophy as well, that it's not the magnitude of the action, but it's with how much love or devotion or contemplation on the infinite that you do that action.
Yeah.
So if you're serving some person, it might not be about the magnitude, but more about the ideation, the flow with which you do that action. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about those. There's 6 lessons, right? 6 secret lessons that somebody who's interested can get initiated into. So maybe you want to briefly talk a little bit about what those 6 lessons are.
Sure. So it's called Sahaj Yoga. So the Sahaj Yoga means easy yoga. Those 6 lessons is a complete set of meditation practice, which if you have all the 6 lessons, you have a nice balance of ideation and action and chakra purification.
Okay. What are the actual 6 lessons? Maybe you want to
Sure, I can go into details.
Each one.
So first one is Ishwar Pranadhan. So Ishwar Pranadhan is a meditation which involves sense withdrawal and ideation on the Supreme. And second one is called Guru Mantra, or second lesson. And that lesson is something which helps us in brahmacharya or feeling the Supreme in our everyday actions. The third one is Tattva Dharana, or purifying the chakras. And the fourth one is Pranayam. And this particular pranayam is a Yudhishthira pranayam. It's a specific type of pranayam that we practice for spiritual purpose. And then the fifth one is Chakra Shodhana, which is another chakra purification lesson. And the sixth one is Guru Dhyan, or Dhyan, or 6th lesson. And so the 6th lesson is a Dhyan lesson, which means that you are trying to bring your mind to a flow state where the mind is just flowing towards the Supreme Consciousness.
And these lessons they're all secret, right? So anybody can't just get like the 6th lesson. You have to continually receive each lesson.
Yeah, so we require an oath of secrecy when we learn meditation. And so that's because we want to preserve the purity of the tradition, and it was also the wish of the Guru. And so the lessons are all secret. Means I can only say this much about them. If you want to learn them, you need to learn them from an authorized acharya, like me.
Yeah.
And
So
the women, they need to learn from Dini, from a female teacher.
So if you're in California or close by, you can come and visit Dada,
Yeah.
learn some meditation.
Or
Hopefully,
if it's a woman, they can visit Didi and Achil.
yeah. Hopefully, you won't have too many people coming now. We'll see how many people see this.
That would be nice.
That would be great.
Yes, right.
So maybe you want to talk a little bit more about the practice. There are a few different aspects of how we do meditation, and there are some auxiliary practices like fasting and whatnot. But in the actual practice, we do this kirtan and we do this meditation. There's this process for each time we sit down and do our practice. So maybe you can also talk a little bit about that also.
It's a noble Siddha mantra given power by Sri Shanamurti called Baba Nam Kevalam. And so Baba Nam Kevalam is a mantra which is not secret. And singing kirtan is not secret, so anyone can do it. And you can also meditate on that mantra. And we also dance a dance called Lalit Marmik. And so this dance, we raise the hands and dance. And after dancing for a few minutes or few hours, as long as you want, Then we sit for meditation, and then during the meditation, we basically withdraw from the external world and go towards the Supreme Consciousness. So the goal of the meditation is Supreme Consciousness, which is a little different from mindfulness meditation.
Definitely. Yeah, it seems like we have a few different kind of things that might be seemingly abstract to someone from the outside, like all these things, fasting, and all these different lessons, and these singing and all this stuff. But really, the deeper, more deeply you understand it, you understand that it's really aimed at the divine and trying to realize that. But can you maybe also explain a little bit about Sri Sri Anandamurti's philosophy and this idea of supreme consciousness?
Mm-hmm. So Sri Sri Anandamurti, he gave early on. He started Anandamarga in 1955, and soon after that he composed a few very important books. The first one is Anandamarga Elementary Philosophy, and then Anda Sutram, and Idea and Ideology. So these three books are like the cornerstone of our philosophy, along with a series of books called Subhasiddha Samgraha, Anda Vachanamridam, as well as one book about Shiva's life, Nama Shivaya Santaya, one about Krishna's life, Nama Krishna Sundaram, and then a few other books like Yoga Philosophy, Yoga Psychology, and quite a few books about economics. Now, the philosophy is very much about defining what is Supreme Consciousness and how to achieve it. So the Supreme Consciousness is defined as Shiva Shaktyatmakam Brahma, or that Brahma, or Supreme Consciousness, is composed of Shiva and Shakti. So, and then that's further defined as Shakti Shivasya Shakti, or that Shakti is controlled by Shiva. So what this means is that Brahma is the Supreme Consciousness. The whole universe is created through Brahma and with Brahma. It means consciousness is the base of life, it's the base of matter, it's the base of everything. So the entire universe is composed of consciousness. And so the consciousness metamorphoses into the universe gradually. And that's done with the help of the creative force. And so the consciousness is controlling the creative force, very much like our mind is controlling our body. And then we are on the returning phase, where our goal is the Supreme Consciousness, where we came from. And the only way to achieve that goal is through meditation, because all other practices are normally involving your sensory and motor organs. And whereas the meditation, you need to go completely beyond the world. You need to leave the sensory and motor organs and go internal towards the consciousness.
For someone from a maybe Christian or Muslim or more monotheistic religion's perspective, that seems very distant. But if you actually go to the original ideas, like lots of Gnostic ideas, they're a lot more in line with this. And I think we're supporting this, where we need to go within and beyond the world. So I think that a lot of traditions and their mystical aspects have this as part of them, and that this tradition is, and these ideas really seem to be the summa, seem to be the peak of the mountain in terms of the richness of philosophy, and trying to find union with that, right?
We don't really define this as a religion, but rather as a practice. And so you can be of any religion and still practice this meditation. It's not an impediment to be religious, rather on the opposite. You just have to be open for learning something new, because normally the people who cannot accept this path or meditation, they are just not ready for accepting something new. So you have to have a little open mind. And also it helps to be able to think in a little bit philosophical terms.
Right, right.
Because that's not really so established in the society. We are not really taught to think philosophically.
Yeah, I remember that there was some conversations on TikTok with some atheists asking, "No, debate me," and some people were coming in trying to convince them of the existence of God, and one of the participants was saying, "Okay, well, let's look at this from a philosophical lens," and he was like, immediately, no, I just very materialistic, more. So there's different aspects of reality. There's more material, grounded, and there's more conceptual, philosophical. So this seems like a lot of these ideas and also the practice is very philosophical, also experiential, becomes experiential, but it's more not easily, it's not going to be obvious to everybody from who's very involved in who doesn't have time to or doesn't often think about philosophical concepts. And so if we take some time and contemplate these ideas, that our mind might open a little bit to these ideas.
Yeah, but you see, like myself, from childhood, I mean, I'm from Christian background, so I was used to the concept of God, and I used to pray, and I used to feel the presence of God. So when I learned this practice, the idea of having God and connecting to God was not new to me at all.
Yeah.
That was something that I had been doing since I was a child. And so I would say that was helpful, because I was, I was almost, I had already established a relationship. And so this was just a tool that made me connect more effectively, in a way. And also Jesus in Christianity is very much like a guru, he is the savior, we have to follow his path. So that concept of having a guru or someone guiding was also present. So I would say for me, the transition was not difficult. Rather, and also my teachers, they would never, they would never criticize Christianity or criticize my Christian background. Rather, they would encourage me to do whatever I wanted to do in my life. And that felt nice. That felt, very respectful. And but at the same time, when I started to study the philosophy, I realized that some things, when I started to go deeper into them, they maybe, there were some philosophical questions that came up. And I was not always agreeing with, the church but, in terms of some aspects. But broadly speaking, God, believing in God, pray, absolutely no question, So there was no contradiction when it came to the fundamental core principles.
So we just finished a retreat here. How did you think it went, Dada?
It was great. It was nice.
So for everybody who's listening, who's also interested, we have retreats here in Northern California. You can Google on Google Maps Ananda Dira, and you can find this place. And I think there's also a website, which I'll leave in the description, where you can book a retreat. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about Dada, about leading these retreats and what the retreats are like.
They are aimed at beginners and also intermediate, advanced. Anyone can attend. Well, I really enjoy in the retreats to be able to introduce meditation to people, because many people have a hard time to start meditation on their own. And so the retreat gives an environment where you have all the support, you have a good routine, a good schedule which is not too strenuous, not too easy. And so you have support from the teachers, from the group. You can really get into the meditation easily, and also get used to the diet. So we have a special vegetarian sattvic diet, which excludes meat, fish, eggs, onion, garlic, mushrooms, and alcohol, tobacco, and narcotic drugs. And so during the retreat, you will experience delicious food. So you understand that this diet is, although it may sound very restrictive, can be very delicious. And so we serve nice food. And then the group helps a lot when you are starting, and having the peer support. Of course, being in a beautiful place, in a beautiful setting, and to be able to share with people and enjoy good meditation.
Beautiful. Yeah, we were kind of closing out this retreats, and some of the participants were talking about some of the past retreats and how high vibrational they can be sometimes. That I think even if somebody came in and did absolutely nothing, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend, but they were just kind of hanging around, I still think that they would be uplifted by the vibrations.
Yeah.
So come and join our retreats.
Yeah.
And thank you guys so much for listening. Namaskar, and as always, Ad Astra.